going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, where we talk to successful Black professionals about their careers, how they got into it, and we get a little bit of insight and guidance on how they got to their positions, and hopefully inspiring you to, get into some of those different careers that they have, taken a lot of time and effort to really develop. This is a podcast brought to you by the Inquire Hire, and I am your host, Selvin Quire. I'm one of the co-founders of Inquire Hire, so I appreciate you joining us today. Just as a friendly reminder, we want to make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share to the podcast, as well as on YouTube and all of your other different streaming services. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Inquire Hire. That's INQUIREHIGHER. And you can also visit our website, inquirehire.com. We've got a wealth of information regarding college, student success, as well as personal finance. And we are in the season of college applications. So if you need any help with that or any help with college preparation, even if you are a freshman, definitely reach out to us. We would definitely love to help you. So our guest today is super experienced within the area of business. He has also been a staff counsel for the U.S. Senate. He's had an extensive career with the Coca-Cola Company, having high positions such as the chief of staff for the CEO and chairman, also the director of business development, and the vice president of franchise leadership. There's a few other positions, but we don't want this intro to be too long. But he's also the managing partner for the Chicago Impact Development Company. I think he has a really good story. He's going to give us a lot of cool gems to really digest and really think about. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome John Brownlee to the show. How you doing, John?
What's up, Selvin? Good to see you.
What's going on? How's everything? How you living?
No complaints really. Macro, I think we all know we're dealing with some challenging times right now. But hopefully through prayer and pulling together and thinking as a collective, we'll be able to pull through this. But challenging times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do appreciate your guidance when it comes to the kids. John and I are both parents at an elementary school in Evanston, Illinois. So like I said, I appreciate what you're doing, outside of the classroom when it comes to those challenging times.
My pleasure. Thank you for the collaboration. You've been a true leader in this area. So thank you.
No, I appreciate that. So let's really get into it. So I want to start off, and I always start this with our guests, is just giving you an opportunity to really kind of, just introduce yourself. I've kind of, laid the groundwork, but, you have a lot more to kind of tell than what I can just look up. So who is John Brownlee?
I think at the risk of sounding cliched, I would say I'm a work in progress. I'm someone who has evolved from being really focused early in my career or college years or whatever on a goal, on a career aspiration, on a financial aspiration, and focused on that goal. And I think I'd like to think I've moved now into a space where I'm more focused on enjoying and appreciating the journey. Because I think when you're overly focused on just one direction or one path, if you're overly focused on that to the exclusion of appreciating the journey in which you're on to get to your goal, I think you miss some things. For me, it took a toll on personal relationships. It impacted my ability, I think, to be as good of a husband, as good of a father as I aspire to be. But it has definitely been an interesting journey. I'm born and raised, I'm a son of the South from Atlanta, born and raised Atlanta. Like you said, went to work for the hometown company. But I pretty much knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. But I also wanted to try and leverage that into something hopefully bigger, benefiting society. But I felt marrying my love of my hometown product, my hometown company, Coca-Cola, with the legal profession might hopefully provide a platform for me to then jump off into what I've been fortunately able to do in the second act of my professional life, which is what I'm doing now. Like I said, grew up in Atlanta, but went to school here in Chicago as an undergrad at Northwestern. And that also kind of fired my love for this city. So when I had an opportunity in my later stages of my career at Coca-Cola to move back here, my wife and I, we were really keen to get back to Chicago. And like I was mentioning earlier, my second act in land development, really trying to focus on trying to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, which I think has just become so prevalent, especially in this time now, and trying to bridge that gap through neighborhood development, equity issues, education, youth empowerment and development, and the like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that whole bridging the gap has been a theme, especially within the last few years. At least with us specifically, we have taken that direction to kind of bridge the gap, kind of talking about different career paths that, someone who looks like us, at, 16, 17, they might not even know about under normal circumstances. So this is really, really good. Now, you talked about marrying your experiences, your education to kind of form into something unique and help you elevate in a sense. So when it came to when you started at Northwestern, you started in international studies. And so first question with that, is that within the area of business, or was that in another college within Northwestern?
The College of Arts and Sciences, at the time it was the College of Arts and Sciences, now it's the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. My original major was political science, but international studies, I wanted to pursue that as an additional major just because I was so interested in trying to build a knowledge base, my own knowledge base around the broader world. Now this was a long time ago. This was like 28 years ago. But I was kind of getting a sense, and people were telling me that the world was becoming increasingly a smaller place. And John, was going to be competing against kids and young adults from all over the world. So it was incumbent upon you to build your knowledge base about the broader world, because if you were going to try and make a real impact, you're going to have to be moving in these international circles. And it was just fascinating to me to just understand the different cultures, the mix of different people. And then also being at Northwestern, I was exposed to a lot of my classmates who were coming from overseas, and just really inspired by some of their stories and inspired by what they were overcoming to just get to Northwestern. And I was determined to learn as much as I could about these different backgrounds of these different fellow students. And hopefully that would, enable me to be in a better position to add value later in my career, whatever my career was going to be.
Yeah, I think you, in a sense, because we've gotten that advice, I think, when, at least when I was in college, that the world, to basically have that global perspective. And now, unless that's something that they've been telling you since then and up until this point, it sounds like you got ahead of the curve when it came to that, because at this point, it is a very global, place that we live in. And if we're even just looking at our state or just a country where, there's a lot of influences when it comes from overseas and things like that. So I think it's pretty cool that you had that mindset early on, or at least got that advice and then kind of took off with that. So now if we kind of like move forward, you actually did, eventually get your law degree. What did that look like? Now that you've had this, the studies for the international studies, and you now have this law degree. As you were going through that, were you already in that mindset of trying to put those two together, or did that just kind of happen organically or through some type of event?
Well, so I knew I was always fascinated by the idea of the study of the law. Some of my heroes, Thurgood Marshall, those legal giants, some of those folks had obviously legal background. And I was fascinated, and I really wanted to be in that world, primarily from the standpoint of, I found that law school, I was under the impression that law school was going to teach me to think differently about issues, look at issues from multiple sides. And law school did not let me down in that regard. It really honed that skill, I'd like to think, in me, enabled me to kind of look at multiple sides of an issue. I think the other thing that was important, as far as maybe veering outside of the traditional legal path post law school, was that several of my classmates, I knew that a lot of them were planning on, going to some of these really high-powered law firms, and the money was going to be fantastic for them and everything. But one thing that I was always kind of driven by, or my own internal driver, was wanting to make sure I worked to live, not lived to work. Mm-hmm. And the concern that I had looking at some of these big law firms was like, what was going to be the quality of life that we would enjoy as young associates while we're trying to, meet the billing requirements, the 2,000 hours per year billing expectation. And I was thinking then, again, wanted to be a husband, wanted to be a dad, and wanting to be able to balance, work and life, successfully. Mm-hmm. And I felt like one thing that would enable me to do that was to make sure that I was pursuing whatever career I chose, that it was aligned with a passion that I had, something that I was really interested in wanting to do. So, Coca-Cola, I was grateful for them to provide me the platform, because as a global company, it was really interesting because they were giving me a window into the world. So I was able to leverage my international studies experience that way. But I did take a pit stop prior to really embarking on my career at Coke. I worked for the government for a couple of years as a staff counsel. Mm-hmm. And I was grateful for that experience because I was trying to round out an understanding of how the world worked from a policymaking standpoint. And I was hoping that if I was able to incorporate enough knowledge and experience from that setting, I'd marry that to the experience that I would hopefully get in the Coca-Cola setting. And I'd like to think it would set me up for success in whatever area that I eventually wanted to get into, with the idea that I wanted to impact society positively. But I felt that there needed to be multiple skill sets that needed to be acquired. Mm-hmm. And so whether it was a piece of, understanding how government worked, how legislation got passed, understanding the different nuances and the different aspects of a major corporation, seeing how different divisions in that corporation work, different functions in that corporation work. I was trying to accumulate as much of that understanding and that knowledge as possible to position me better for success on down the road.
Yeah. So, and a lot of what you explained, there's a lot of forward thinking in that, and it's multi-layered in the sense that you're talking about just you as a professional, just professional development, wanting to kind of put these pieces of a puzzle that you don't know what the big picture will exactly look like, but when it comes together, that it's just going to look beautiful by the time that it's done. And the other layer of just kind of setting yourself up in a good position personally. So, making sure that as you're kind of, like you said, having this, home focus on your career development, by the time you get to, the part where you, like you said, you want to enjoy life a little bit more, you are already putting those pieces together to set yourself for that. So, I definitely want to highlight that whole forward thinking in terms of the professional side as well as the personal side. So it was really good that you explained that.
If I could add one other thing, mm-hmm. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that there is a sense of urgency that I felt as a black young man. Mm-hmm. I was taught by my parents at a very early age that in this society, as a black person, you're going to have to succeed twice as much, and you only have to fail half as bad. Mm-hmm. And you will be judged according to that standard. So it was that in the back of my mind. It was also the sense of obligation that I felt towards people like my parents who worked everything from my mom as a teacher, my dad doing everything from custodial work to working on a flight line, both of them breaking their backs just so I would have the opportunity to go to some of the best resourced schools in the country, if not the world. And so there's an obligation that I felt to my parents. There's an obligation that I felt to the Fannie Lou Hamers of the world, the James Merediths of the world, the Medgar Evers of the world, the John Lewises of the world, who literally bled so I would have the right to go to the Northwesterns, to go to the University of Virginia, recognizing that, only 40 or so years before me, people that looked like me had no shot
Yeah.
at going to these places, not through a lack of skill or a lack of talent, but due to a lack of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sense of, the reason I wanted to revisit that is because I didn't want anyone to misinterpret my just appreciating the journey and not being so focused on the goal. I don't want anyone to mistake that for any sense of complacency.
Yeah.
There is a sense of urgency, and there's a sense of obligation to basically make good on the efforts of people who died long before I was born. And so I feel like I'm carrying that with me and continue to carry that with me as I strive and try to live up to the hopes and dreams of forefathers and foremothers.
Yeah. No, it's funny to think where you said, like, 40 years before that point that you were at, that things were drastically different for us, in terms of opportunity and, getting out of, difficult situations. And in some cases, it's maybe not the same, but there are still those struggles. And
100%.
and the fact that you still have this pay it forward mindset, and you have this this obligation, on top of your own personal, merits and things that you want to accomplish, you still have that greater good, and acknowledging that things were much more difficult. So I'm not going to take this opportunity that I have for granted, and I'm going to use that to, push myself forward, push my family forward, my community, and then, and as it gets greater than that. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Now, when it comes to, with the career that you've had within business, and the different people that you've interacted with, some people, or students, or just, folks who aren't in the know, they might have this perception that, okay, people in business are a certain way. They only have maybe a limited number of different personalities. I might not fit this mold, or so you say. In your experience, what have been like the similarities and differences of, people within business? What qualities do they share? What qualities does someone like in accounting have different than somebody in sales, for example? So, like, can you point out some of those similarities and differences from your experience?
I would say, think about the commonalities in business. I would say a lot of people who enjoy success in this world, they share a similar drive, a determination, a persistence, to not be satisfied, to not settle. And that goes whether you're focused on accounting, marketing, supply chain, legal, anything. There's this determination to be better, and to make things better, or leave things better than they were when you inherited them or you came across them. I would say, interestingly, from the standpoint of personality, you have a wide range of, if there's a commonality in terms of the drive and the determination to make things better, you have a wide range of motivations on the parts of individuals who might enter the business world. You might have someone who is determined to be focused on altruistic ends, and they're interested in business, but only as a platform to make things that I think about. This is just a silly example, but the Bombas shoe company or sock company. Every sock that they sell, they donate a sock, and they're thinking about bettering society, which is very noble. Then other people are completely motivated by money. That might be their exclusive sole motivation. So you have a wide range of people. You have a wide range of backgrounds from which people, obviously business is an international dynamic. You have people coming from a wide range of backgrounds. You have people who might have come up and been former athletes, but even when they were, training as athletes, they had a desire to someday get into the business world. You see the LeBron James of the world who's turned into a mogul, as well as being an amazing basketball player, but he has this business mindset. And you think about, recording artists, recording stars, or people in the entertainment fields, Tyler Perry, Jay-Z, all these folks. So coming from different backgrounds or different paths, but they are united in a drive and united in a desire to to make things better or leave things in a better position than they were when they got them. And there's a commitment to, I would say, a commitment to excellence that a lot of the more successful people in business have.
Nice, nice. So yeah, I think that's good to note. In terms of the whole like personalized. I'm glad that you mentioned motivations in terms of what has gotten people into it, and using some folks using that whole business world as a channel for, like you said, those other motivations. So it's not necessarily I like business per se, but I can see business as something to accomplish this goal, or I can serve my community in this way, and business is the route or the channel that I'm going to take to do that. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Now, in terms of, let's say someone has gotten to that point where they've maybe reached a certain level within their career, and maybe just the culture of either the company itself, or just kind of the world of business that they're in, specifically corporate. I put that in quotes for a reason. Now, if somebody's concerned about being in that environment, the sense of discomfort, when it comes to kind of navigating and maneuvering and interacting with people. And, to be frank, meaning, specifically Black folks, within that area. And you've had positions that are pretty high, and, without knowing what that type of culture is, what would you suggest to someone who's maybe new to that area, that level of accomplishment or that position, in terms of navigating so that they have maybe not necessarily 100% comfortable, but they have a balance of being able to manage everything that they're responsible for?
So interesting. It's a great question. And interestingly, I remember when I started at Coke, because I started at Coke actually as a way to pay for Northwestern. So I started there as an intern when I was 17. And I remember being anxious, first time working in a big business or whatever. And I remember my mom and my dad were telling me, no matter what, just remember to always think for yourself. And they reminded me of that line in one of the Shakespeare plays, I believe it was Hamlet, where Polonius said, "To thine own self be true." And I feel like I tried to use that as kind of my North Star throughout my time at Coca-Cola. Because, if you try and focus on reading different tea leaves and aligning yourself and playing the corporate game, those sands are going to shift quicker than you can say boo. And you'll wind up, just tricking yourself, trying to, you're chasing your tail and chasing just different, whichever way the wind is blowing. But if you can, focus on your own deeply set principles of how you're going to behave, acting with integrity. For those of you people of faith, I lean heavily on my faith, which helps me during challenging times. Then, you're not going to be buffeted by these different, the vagaries of the office politics or whatnot. The other advice, for what it's worth, that I would give is to focus on building your own skill set, as well as your own network within the company. And the reason I say that is because the company, I love Coca-Cola, but at the end of the day, Coca-Cola loves Coca-Cola. And at the end of the day, for me, I respect and I appreciate the corporate mission, but at the end of the day, I've got to look out for me. And if Coca-Cola has to choose between Coca-Cola's value and John Brownlee, no prizes for guessing who Coca-Cola is going to choose. Right. So by the same token, I have to, and I would encourage your listeners also to focus on understanding what is going to be to their betterment, what is going to improve their situation, what will put them in a position to, if need be, if heaven forbid there are layoffs or something like that, what will put them in a position to be a value added asset to some other company, or what will put them in a position to be able to command various jobs or whatever that might be out there, and they'll be asked to join these firms or go and do these amazing opportunities based on the inherent skill set in which they have developed on their own. So like I said, to thine own self be true, be sure that you are thinking about what is going to benefit your self-interest as far as bettering yourself. And you do that through, extra learning, continuing education classes, taking advantage. These Fortune 500 companies are known for having all of these incredible classes, cross-functional classes. You can learn about supply chain, marketing, and take advantage of all of those things, while at the same time trying to engage and meet different people from different functions that might be in or outside of your function. Because at the end of the day, you have to make yourself as valuable a commodity as possible, because you might be at one company one day, you might be at another company the next, but the one thing that's going to be the constant is you. Right. And your need to put food on the table for you and maybe your family or whatever. And you want to put yourself in as good a position as possible to do that.
Absolutely. No, that's super informative, just having that moral compass in line. And that might take time to develop, but it's never too early to really lay that foundation in terms of the person that you are, and really be able to stand on those beliefs and those interests that you do have. So, using that as a guidance, and it sounds like you've really done that, the layers of different aspects of yourself that you hold true to yourself, you've really kind of let that kind of, guide you as far as, you're maneuvering everywhere. So, I appreciate you saying that. Now, this is a little bit off the cuff, because I wanted to mention this in the intro, but you're a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, correct? There you go. So I'm a super big supporter when it comes to Black Greek culture and the super strong things that all the organizations have done. Like, I'm a member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, and there's just a lot of things that we've done. I want you to, and this is also kind of in lines of support. I'm a big believer of, you can't do everything by yourself. And especially when it comes to different areas of your life, there is that support that you do need. And I can, safely assume that you got a lot of support when it came to your fraternity,
getting a lot of support.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to the different aspects of your life. So I just want you to, give maybe a brief, explanation of kind of that experience of you getting into Greek culture, maybe the perception that you had before, and then, after, getting into the work that you do for Alpha.
So growing up, especially down south, Black Greek culture is tremendous. And then from a family perspective, several family members, mother, aunt, cousins, uncles, involved in Greek life. So I knew about it growing up, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to be a part of, also from the standpoint of looking at these amazing figures in African-American history, whether you're looking at the Paul Robeson, you're looking at the Dr. Martin Luther Kings, you're looking at the Thurgood Marshalls. Let's say they're all alphas.
I caught that.
You realize that that's something that, if you aspire to be associated with that, because that also encourages you to want to be better. And so when I got up to Northwestern, got on the yard, I was kind of predisposed towards being an alpha anyway. And the experience, it was amazing. It was not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but that's another conversation for another day.
Of course.
But going to your point as far as what it became for me, and it is for all of our Greek organizations, it's a lifetime relationship and a lifetime commitment in terms of your association with wanting to be better and better society. And you're associating with some like-minded people who are committed to a similar path. So for me, like I said, is continuing to this day, collaborating with fraternity brothers who are, like, for instance, in the banking industry now, one of my chapter brothers is helping me out with some financing on these land development projects that we're doing on the South Side. Why is he doing that? Not simply because we're chapter brothers, but he saw what we're trying to do as far as affordable housing on the south side of Chicago. He knows, being from Chicago, the gap growing between the haves and the have-nots.
Mm-hmm.
He knows, based on who he is as a Black man, the importance that those of us who have been blessed with opportunity, that we reach back and help and do something to make this world a better place. There are so many of it, whether it's an Alpha, a Q, Iota, Soror Kamala Harris, who's trying to become, the vice president of the United States. I mean, people that are in these organizations mostly tend to be of a mindset of, we are committed to making this society a better place, making it a society a better place for African Americans. But by the way, when we're making the society a better place for African Americans, we're making American society better, full stop.
Absolutely.
So that was something that it drew me to my particular fraternity and organization. I'm grateful to be a Black Greek, be a member of Alpha, obviously. But I've just really moved by the mission, and the anticipation or the expectations that I had prior to pledging have been far exceeded in terms of what it actually turned out to be. And I'm appreciative of that.
Awesome. And then last point to that now, what advice would you have for someone who didn't have that pre-exposure? Like, I can say for myself,
sure.
I took to a book that was actually written by an Alpha, I believe it was Lawrence Ross, that just had the history of all 9 of the organizations within the Divine Nine. And that's just kind of where I started. And I kind of looked around from there. But what advice would you give to somebody who may not be exposed to that, prior to college, but maybe thinking that's something that they want to encounter?
Oh, I mean, well, first of all, and let me be very clear, whether you join an organization or don't join it, either way, it's fine. If you have a drive to make society better, do you, whether it's in a Divine Nine organization or not. I don't want to by any means say this is the only way to go, because it's not.
Absolutely.
But I would encourage someone who might interested in finding out more, I would encourage them to first and foremost talk. There are plenty of Black Greeks. I mean, you could throw a stick and you hit a Black Greek in the community these days. Talk to them about it, and they might have their experience. Mine was amazing. I know yours was great.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to them about it and ask them their perspective, what they think, and based on those conversations, the individual needs to make a judgment for themselves as to whether or not he or she feels this might be the right move for them. I can only speak to the way it worked out for me, and you can speak to the way it worked out for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think it does still go to that point of having that moral compass again, and making sure that your belief system, whatever that's composed of, aligns with whatever organization that you're trying to align
100%.
yourself with. Yeah. So
100%.
Definitely. So there is one last question, a little bit lighthearted, and I wanted to just get your perspective. So now there was a certain point whenever I would go to a theater and I would go to the drink machine, and, it would just have your standard, depending on if they were a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, supporting company, they would have their line of drinks or whatever. So at some points, Coca-Cola has now this new machine that has probably 40 plus flavors of anything that you can think. Freestyle. There you go.
Oh, it's more than 40 now.
Let them know. So when that was revealed, or I'm sure that you had insight before that actually became public, and I don't know how many of those flavors you actually got to try, but what would you say would be your favorite one? One that's, outside of just the regular standard flavors of the different drinks. Which one would you say is the best in your opinion? And then which one would you say is, you have no idea what they were thinking when they put that together because it tastes awful? What would you say are the best and worst out of those, new out of freestyle?
I'm going to disappoint you with my answer, because at the end of the day, I'm a pretty simple guy. Mm-hmm. And I think back to when I was a long time ago playing sports, and my dad would pick me up from a game or practice, and I could not wait to get just an ice cold Coca-Cola in a bottle or a can, and just an ice Coca, delicious, perfect, awesome. Now, I will say, as I moved in my career, about had been at Coke about 5, 6 or so years, and Coke came out officially with vanilla Coke. And we had, this is a long time ago, some of y'all are going to remember, Missy Elliott was one of our original pitch people. And we had the bobblehead, and just being able to, vanilla Coke to me is absolutely outstanding. And now they've done the new variation of cherry vanilla Coke, because I always like cherry Coke. Cherry vanilla Coke, those are awesome. Going to the flip side, the ones I'm not feeling, I've just never really been a fan of pretty much anything diet. Like Diet Coke, I leave that alone.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about kind of exotic all-time nastiness, being able to have worked internationally and gotten a taste of like the different flavors, there is a brand that we have, and I'm not sure if it's in sub-Saharan Africa or in Asia. It's called Beverly, and it just tastes like straight trash. It's horrible, man. It's horrible. I don't know who likes that profile, that taste profile, but it's not me. I'm clearly not the target audience. That would stand out for me. And the only other one that would stand out for me, I spent some time in Russia and Ukraine, and over there they have this, it's a really popular, I forget the name, what we call it over there, but it's basically kind of a fermented drink. And it's non-alcoholic, but it's like a fermented drink. Wow. So awful, man.
It's an
so awful.
acquired taste for
acquired taste that I would never acquire. If I had to choose between that and death, I think I'm opting for glory.
There you go.
Yeah.
I appreciate the insight. I'm going to have to look up this Beverly thing and kind of look up
Beverly.
Yeah,
Beverly. It's like the woman's name, Beverly.
Gotcha.
No. You won't catch me drinking that.
No, just Coke, vanilla Coke, when on those days that you really have a taste for it.
Dude, as soon as I hang up from you, I'm about to go get one out of the fridge.
There you go. And on that note, John, I really appreciate your time, giving your insight. I think we got a little bit more than just, the company that you work for, really the insight, the mindset as you have gotten through your career. I think this will definitely inspire at least one listener in terms of, the path that they're looking to get into. I think you have some really good insight on that. And just really thankful that you had the time to talk with me today. So before I close out, is there anything that you wanted to share, plug, or, where people can find you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anyone. I'll leave you with two things. Number one, for young folks out there, proceed as if success is inevitable. That would be the first thing. And then, I'm sorry, but I have to do it. Anytime I have a platform, I'm going to say November 3rd, you have got to get out there and vote.
Absolutely.
I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. No, I fully support that message. So thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, however you're consuming this. Like I said, if you had any, careers, even specific individuals that you wanted us to talk to and really kind of pick their brain on kind of how they got to where they're at, feel free to reach out to us. You can check us out social media. Our website, inquirehire.com. You can email us at inquirehire@gmail.com. And, we're hoping to continue to bring forth people who can really share their stories and really, give some guidance in terms of the different areas that they're in. I've been enjoying myself personally, and I hope that you all have been as well. So until next time, peace to you and have a great day.